My name is Enrique Martí, and I'm a photographer. One thing that I don't like is this concept of war photographers or war journalists or conflict photographer. I think you're a photographer. Right now, I'm more of an editor than a photographer, actually. So I think if I have to choose, it would be a photographer. I started pretty late. I started when I was almost in my 30s. I was 28, 29. I studied law and worked in the business with my father in Barcelona. Back then, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, man. And I'm not going to tell you everything. I'm not going to tell you why I left Barcelona in the first place, but it was nothing good, you see. So, many of the people that, all the photographers or journalists that tend to go to places in conflict, they have some skeletons in the closet, okay? And then for reasons that are not, how we say in Spanish, no vienen al caso, meaning it's not related to anything. I left Barcelona and I ended up in Central America traveling and running away from Barcelona. And then I started taking pictures. I didn't have a goal of becoming a photographer, a professional photographer. It just happened. And I covered the Olympic Games in Barcelona, which were in August 1992. And then I was seeing what was happening in Croatia and then in Sarajevo in the news, right? And when the Olympics were finished, and I came with $2,000 in my pocket in September, October 1992, okay? And then I started freelancing here. I remember arriving to this area, ended up in the Holiday Inn. I had money to pay the Holiday Inn for maybe a week or something. Then I ended up in a building here, house of somebody with no water, it was but I was still going to the Holiday Inn to eat, pretending that I was still staying in the Holiday Inn. And the waiters, since they saw me, they were giving me food for free, So this is how I started here. For the whole time I was here, when something big was happening, everybody was coming. And then when the things were the usual, little thing here, there, nobody cared, okay? But since I was here all the time, when something was happening, I was getting good pictures. Our job as agency photographers, being based here, was to supply pictures for the daily newspapers, okay? So sometimes when it was quiet, we would go and hang out in places just in case something happens, all right? One day we will go and sit at the Kosovo hospital to see if there is shelling or whatever, and wounded people comes into the hospital, and we will document what's happening doing that. Someday we would go to a corner near the presidency where people will run between corners because the snipers. Did you feel empathy for the people here? Of course, But it was a way of life, that you choose. But I wouldn't call myself a war photographer or somebody on a mission, it's not something that I chose, it just happened, I never really planned anything. I don't have this sense of duty, of documenting. It just happened, all right? Since I didn't plan it, it just happened, I don't feel that I deserve it, you see? And of course, it's a job that requires to document the suffering of people sometimes, okay? You know, this profession of journalism in general, you document things that are happening, and sometimes the worse they are, the better for you, in the sense that it's more impactful, okay? So that's a bit shitty. That day, back then there was these UN, APCs in the corners because there was snipers shooting from Gerbavica. And we were just sitting there, basically doing nothing. It was me and a camera woman. And then all of a sudden we heard a shot. And we saw that the kid was like 40 meters from where we were sitting. We were sitting in the steps of this museum here when we heard the shots, and then I saw the kid lying here. He just had walked by where we were and then continued, okay? The kid was shot in the intersection. It was wide open to the street going to Gerbavica, you know? And I saw that there was a jeep, a UN jeep that was going to go to collect the body. So what I did was something pretty stupid, which is I ran away and I stood next to the kid. I took some pictures even before the truck arrived. So for a couple of seconds I was exposed actually to the sniper here. And I stood here, I took several pictures of this. There were people hiding behind this other APC here. Took some wider. I have a lot of photos. And then the mother was also wounded. The shot that killed the kid, I think that went through her belly.
She is hurt. No.
And then I saw the mother with the sister that was there, and I took some pictures. It was tragic, it was bad, and you feel like you just witnessed a 7-year-old kid being executed, basically. I took that picture, sniper that just killed the kid, you know. What you also feel as a photographer is that you have a very strong image, okay? And that is not the first thing that goes through your mind, but it is exhilarating, okay? Because you know that you have a picture that is going to be published everywhere, all right? And that is, it's, you know, there is details about this that I didn't even see when I took the picture. I didn't see the pencil here. There is a pencil that he probably was carrying that is on the floor. The hand of the kid, his face in the blood. When you see this, you think of other pictures that I could have taken, but I didn't. I could have done a close-up of this, because this kid's face with the blood and the little hand there, it's a very strong detail that I could have done, okay? Yeah. Later on, I realized that I actually knew this kid, and Gervasio had photos of me with Nermin actually throwing snowballs and stuff. 1 year before, you know. when you live in Sarajevo, you cannot be neutral. You're in Sarajevo and you see what's happening to the people in Sarajevo. And then, like we did, you take the car and go to Pale to buy gasoline and whatever, and then you see the positions of the Serbs in the hills and how they look and see the street and they see the people and they see everything. How can you be neutral? You see, there is people that are killing the people below, man. That it's like there is the good guys down there and the bad guys on the hills. Period, you see. So, yes, are you objective? Are you neutral? No, you're not. You take sides just by being there, okay? But it's good to wonder the reasons of why things happen. We manage with our traumas or whatever happens through our life the same way everybody else. Because everybody has traumatic experiences at all levels. Objectively, they may be different, okay? They may seem more traumatic for you that I see a 7-year-old kid being shot than somebody that I don't know, that has something traumatic happening in their daily life in the streets of New York, okay? But everybody has experiences that affects your life and the way you go through life. And everybody deals with them their own way. You can call this post-traumatic stress and go to a shrink and get treatment, or you can just process it and become a person that lives through things that sometimes are hard to live and change you, okay? But it doesn't make us or anybody else special. People that lived in Sarajevo from 1992 to 1995 has way more traumatic experiences than me. After all, I came here and I chose to be here for whatever reason, okay? But I did choose that. Right? A kid that was born here and had to live through shelling and so on didn't choose that and has way more traumatic experiences than I do, okay? So for me, talking about how hard it is to be a war photographer, a conflict photographer, and you know how hard it is for your family and your family life, honestly, for me, that is BS, okay? I'm not saying that it's not hard, it is. It's, you know, what is the big deal? It does for good Netflix series, man, that's all, you know. The reason why I left Barcelona is because I was involved in the 80s on doing a lot of drugs, okay, in a really bad way, all right? So when I left, many of my friends died either of overdose or AIDS or whatever. So I was not really, I was going through that without, I don't remember being scared when I was here, okay? Not at all. I didn't really give a shit, okay? And because of my personal experiences in a complete different environment, all right? Which was not very good, all right? Once I had a bullet here that I felt like my hair went up, and like I heard it whistling, see? And it didn't, like nothing. After Sarajevo, I moved to Egypt, to Cairo, as a staff photographer for the AP, and for many years I covered all kinds of disasters. I covered Rwanda, and I covered Kosovo. I covered earthquakes, famines, conflict. I went to Iraq, whatever. And of course, the personal level, nothing was like covering Sarajevo, for a very simple reason. I had a connection with the people here that it didn't have anywhere else. That day, obviously, it stayed with me forever.